All right, guys, it's Anthony Super Service. This is Jason and Joe's truck. Joe's the son. Jason's the father. This is the truck we made a video on a long time ago on the oil change that came out as sludge. It had massive coolant in the oil. It was pretty freaking bad. So we waited. They finally come up and they wanted, well, we're kind of looking for a culprit for coolant in the oil, which I don't know. I mean, guys, here. Okay, I've seen it before where front covers can crack or cavitate. Coolant pump's right behind here. There's oil in here. This goes into the little housing for camshaft. There's a little weep hole that goes down into the block right there. I've seen it before where they'll crack across here. We have not found any holes into this area right here where it possibly could contaminate. That's a freaking drag. I mean, you know, I just haven't found any holes. So, you know, whether or not that, this did have horribly bad head gaskets, like horribly. So, I mean, we very well could be looking at also, since the front cover didn't appear to be bad, we did vac down the oil cooler. We tested it with a vacuum, and it held pressure good. If you look inside of it, it's got all kinds of crap in it. I mean, the oil side obviously ain't nothing there, but it's just nasty crap in there. Now, inside there, that's a coolant port right there. We've got all kinds of metal fragments and stuff in there. This does make a crazy sounding knocking noise. Sounds like flex plate, something back in the back as the starter engages. Like every rotation of the flex plate, you'll hear a knock, dunk, dunk, and then it goes away. So, you know, we need to look at starter. We can look down. We'll look down inside of there and look at the gearing, cam gear and the crank gear, make sure everything doesn't come out and obviously look bad. But this had massive coolant in the oil. And when coolant and oil mix, I mean, yeah, most of the time you would think it's milkshake, which if it absolutely aerates, it could be. But if you look here, it is sludge. Sludge inside of the high pressure pump housing. Let me set that up there. Just sludge. That is coolant. That is nasty freaking coolant. Now down in, yeah, I mean, it doesn't look as bad as I thought it would look back here, there where that oil was standing. Jacob's was real bad, and his had actually sludge sitting back there. One thing we've got to consider on this, it did have horribly bad head gaskets, but this coolant in the oil, okay, could either be a crack in the head, a crack in the block, which I've only seen one other truck that had a cracked block that leaked coolant in the oil. And that was because they had straight water in it through the winter. Now, this truck hasn't been owned for a terribly long amount of time. So, you know, I mean, yeah, anything's possible. I mean, this could be a freaking cracked block. There is a percentage chance that it could be a cracked block or a cracked head. The only way to test for that is disassemble the freaking thing. That way we can see it, pressurize all the ports, get it hot, and, you know, we could Magnaflux it too. We could go and Magnaflux the block and Magnaflux the heads and look for a crack in a port, you know, in the coolant passage to oil passage. That, you know, yeah, but what might be a little more feasible percentage-wise for the job we're looking at here right now could be the head gasket is physically letting it contaminate from a coolant port to an oil port, because coolant and oil will both pass through the head gasket. Now, the only bonus that we've got going here, that if we yank the heads off, would be he could get his head gasket issue fixed. Now, if we go through and yank these heads off and we don't go, and we don't magnaflux the block, which chances are low that this is a cracked block. What's a lot more feasible with where we're sitting right now is that a head gasket has failed so bad that it's letting coolant mix with the oil. Not far-fetched. It can happen. So, but the bad thing would be, when head gaskets fail, they got to be failed pretty bad for you to accurately say, yep, it's failed right there. Like right on the fire ring, right on one coolant port, to actually tell, because some of the gasket material will stick to the head, some will stick to the head gasket, some will stick to the block and the head gasket. You just have to really pay attention when we take it apart. But right now, what I would really like to do, it was leaking. It looked like it might have had a little leak from the bed plate too. Oil pan looks pretty kind of wet. Let me see if you can see over here. See, that could be cam and crank sensor also. Basically, we could either take the HVAC box out and pull the heads off in chassis, or we could, with where it's sitting right now, we tore the front apart, because it doesn't take that long to get the front apart. So we took it apart, and let me set this up. It's bugging the hell out of me. We could go ahead and just pull the freaking engine. Yank the engine out, get it on the stand, take the heads off, go ahead and take the rear cover off. Remember all that coolant that I pulled out of the oil? I'm sure this thing has been ran low on oil, and it's had horrible oil running through it. This 270,000 mile truck, I think it's 270. We should go ahead and yank the engine to do head gaskets so that we can also pull the rear cover and do the entire set of lifters. If a lifter has been starved for oil and the needle bearing is getting ready to go, no matter how much work we're going to do to it right now, if we don't replace these lifters, it's going to be total engine rebuild if a lifter goes. It's gone. It's engine out again. Every bit of labor, every bit of parts. Well, most of the parts, they're going to be gone. So, my suggestion right now is to yank the engine out, replace the lifters, do the head gaskets, just surface the heads. We don't know what the heads are going to look like. Hopefully the guides aren't too bad. I don't know. We're going to lap the heads in, new springs, new seals, and hope that when we lift the heads off, that we see a smoking gun on the head gasket that would account for this cross-contamination of coolant and oil, because it's coolant going in the oil. Okay, normally it would be the other way around, because coolant pressure is higher than oil pressure on a sustained well, not in the pressurized side of it. When you're looking at the head, the passageways going through the head gasket are just passageways for oil from the valve train to run back down to the crank. That is not a pressurized system. That is just inside the crankcase. So that would be a spot. Another spot is right here on the front cover, because this area right here is not in the pressurized oil system. Behind these galley plugs is where it's pressurized. That's where it's, anywhere between 20 to 70 pounds, depending on idle and throttle position and temperature. So, we're kind of at a little spot right now where it's going to be a tough animal to make the decision and hold to that decision. This truck absolutely had horrible head gaskets. Every time we saw it, we've been changing the oil on it for multiple times for the last, well, who knows how long. Another problem that we're going to have too is we've been changing the oil and keeping an eye on it for about the last couple of months. Joe has been really good at keeping the oil changed on it, trying to clean out all the sludge, because I've got a video from about 5-6 months ago of us draining this oil, and it was horrible. It was sludge. So he's been working on trying to keep it clean. But I mean, I don't know. It just, to go through and do all this stuff with how bad the head gaskets were, because the head gaskets were blown. So why don't, I mean, chances are pretty freaking slim that it's a cracked block. I mean, honestly, it's pretty slim. We just don't have big issues with cracked blocks. I mean, the only way they really crack is if they had straight water put in it over when it freezes outside. I don't know, my voice is all messed up. I think I'm probably forgetting some stuff, I don't know, but it's just so nasty in there. It would be nice to yank it out and put a fresh set of lifters in it, and then hope that we see a spot on the head gasket where it was leaking. Because, I mean, this freaking sucks. I mean, it sucks that we gotta, that this coolant's leaking in, which, I don't know. I just thought I would show the sludge in there and kind of spit the case out for where we want to go with this truck. I mean, it's just a drag that we didn't see a crack in that front cover. We didn't see a crack in it. If we would have seen a crack, boom, there you go. We found it. Heck yes. So we didn't see that, though. I mean, we could put it all back together just like this, too. The downside of that is the labor that we've got going right now. Granted, it's more money to go ahead and get the heads off or yank the engine out, put the lifters in. I mean, if this was my truck, not a chance in the world I would be letting this engine stay in. But once again, I've said it before, it's easy for me to just suggest stuff when it's not my money. So, but this truck absolutely could be looking at a lifter failure just because of the oil condition and the starvation of oil that the lifters have been subjected to. The other side of this, why it showed up here in the first place right now, this time, the reason why it showed up was because it hydrolocked. Because this had a stock EGR cooler on it that had catastrophically failed. So the EGR cooler failed, which means we take these heads off, we are going to see rust inside on the cylinder wall. We're going to see it. So that's a freaking drag. But I don't know. I think I've ranted enough. We'll just who knows which way we'll go with it. I'll make another video when we decide. All right, guys, that's it. Have a good day.